I'll be honest, I was not expecting to make another theory video. In fact, I wasn't planning on doing a scripted video on a demo, and yet here we are. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is the much anticipated, at least for me, sequel to Hyrule Warriors and is the prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And considering that Hyrule Warriors is, my second favorite game of all time, well, Age of Calamity may have also just broken the Zelda timeline wide open, so now it is my second favorite horror game of all time. Now, I'm not joking at all, by the way. This spin-off caused a timeline fiasco so big that I'm putting on my theorist cap for the second and hopefully final time. At least when it comes to Age of Calamity and or the Zelda timeline. This all starts in the opening cutscene. Yeah, they couldn't even wait until the game starts to ruin the timeline. This cutscene contains a concept that has the potential to completely change the perception of the timeline. Right here, this mini-guardian goes back in time to warn Zelda that the Calamity is coming. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is this so significant? We see time travel in games like Ocarina of Time, so the instance of time travel itself is not significant, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Very wrong. Very, very, very wrong. The most obvious reason that this is big is that it is a guardian time traveling. If you are unaware, Calamity Ganon has control of these guardians as soon as the second incursion of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and by proxy, and most obviously, the events of Breath of the Wild. This means that Calamity Ganon could send a guardian back in time to influence and change events. This is actually seen in Age of Calamity, at least in the demo, in this cutscene after the second battle. Basically, this isn't just a baseless claim I made up. But why does it mess with the timeline? Well, Calamity Ganon could have used a mini-guardian to assist the past versions of himself. The timelines merge with Breath of the Wild, so it's not completely out of the question for Calamity Ganon to do that. Calamity Ganon may have been manipulating the events of the timeline to set up for something big that will happen in Breath of the Wild 2. This actually leads into a second, older theory that relates to Breath of the Wild 2, and now Age of Calamity. The Ganondorf seen in Breath of the Wild 2's trailer, Calamity Ganon's original body before he abandoned it, is the same Ganondorf from Twilight Princess, and thus Ocarina of Time. We can tell that this is the Ganondorf from Twilight Princess because of the headdress, wounds, and actual size of the corpse. But there are already a bunch of theory videos on YouTube that you can watch if you want more detail, but I need to move on. I want to keep this as short as possible. We know that the Twilight Princess Ganondorf is the same one as Ocarina, and technically Wind Waker, because the game literally tells us. So with this knowledge, Calamity Ganon is the same Ganon from Twilight Princess and by proxy Ocarina. This is significant because Calamity Ganon could be doing a number of things using the mini-guardian. I'll focus on the most plausible scenarios for this video. The first one is teaching his past self how to unlock their true power. This is pretty self-explanatory. Calamity Ganon could also be reviving and or freeing himself from the spirit world this way. There are areas in the timeline where it says blank is revived, and Calamity Ganon could be the one doing it. Finally, and most significantly, he could have manipulated the timeline to set up for something horrible in Breath of the Wild 2. This is the one that makes the most sense to me. Calamity Ganon, and thus Twilight Ganon, and thus Ocarina Ganon that has failed, learned he won in a specific timeline, but that Link and Zelda were somehow still able to bounce back. This time, he's going to make sure that he snuffs them out and allows evil to prevail, ending Demise' curse in his favor. I'm not entirely sure what his plan entails, as Breath of the Wild 2 is nowhere near releasing as of writing this and as of recording this as well, but I can speculate on exactly what it could be. The first one is bringing former versions of himself back, multiple versions, those from the failed child and adult timelines, possibly even Demise himself, the one who cursed Link into a reincarnation to fight Ganondorf for eternity. When Zelda was caught in the crossfire, that complicated things, but that's beside the point. This would make a whole lot of sense. Once again, we've seen timelines split and converge, and this time travel itself is very possible in this part of the Zelda universe. Considering how powerful Ocarina Ganon has become at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow figured it out. The second is forcing multiple time periods to coexist. Again, this is something we've seen before. This happens in the original Hyrule Warriors and it causes complete chaos. Yeah, that game isn't canon, but for the most part it plays within the rules of Zelda. This is definitely something that Calamity Ganon could realistically do. In fact, he may have already done it due to Breath of the Wild merging the timelines. The final scenario is going back to the murdering the other Links, thus undoing the events of the whole timeline. We see a Guardian laser go through the portal, so what's stopping him from aiming a laser at Link's house in Ocarina or Twilight, or the Watchtower in Wind Waker, which would effectively destroy the whole adult timeline, as 2 of the 3 Links there are the same. It would be a quick and painless way for him to come out on top. And honestly, that's it. There are mostly just new possibilities we have, and this is all pretty much all up in the air. The timeline that we have now may be a lie, a setup, or just like it is now, I don't know. I'll have to see how the rest of Age of Calamity's story plays out when the full game comes out. I'll also probably have to wait until Breath of the Wild 2 comes out to finally figure out what's actually going on. Who knows, maybe I'll be wrong and something crazier will happen. Either way, that's all I got. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Take care.